Hi, and welcome. I'm Tina Troutman from Capgemini. Thank you so much for joining us today for another installment in the BICG webinar series titled Best Practices in Leveraging MDM for Business Analytics. Your presenters today will be Scott Bogan, Enterprise Information Management Lead for North America for Capgemini. Scott has been in data management for over 15 years, working with various different technologies. Also presenting with Scott today will be Nick Mascarotolo, Director of EPM and MDM Partner Alliances for Oracle. Nick has worked at Oracle for the past 10 years, and prior to that he was at Hyperion for 10 years. A little about the flow of today's presentation. Both Scott and Nick will present, and then we'll have time at the conclusion of the presentation for a brief Q&A session. We encourage you to ask questions, and you can submit them anytime through the question pane on your control panel. Also, please be sure to stay until the end of the webinar, as we will be giving away free training tokens to 2 lucky attendees. Without further ado, let's begin today's presentation. And with that, I hand it over to Scott.
Thanks, Tina. Jason, my name is Scott Bogan. I'm a EIM practice lead for Capgemini, and at Capgemini that effectively encompasses areas of data management from data governance, master data management, data integration, data quality, and metadata management. So today we're going to focus on master data management. I wanted to put master data management, though, against the information landscape as a background. Master data management in and of itself can't live in the vacuum. It's part of the overall structure for information management, and this slide really lays out what we'd see as the ideal view of an information landscape. The left side being the business processes supported by the applications for each of those business organizations and processes, and then ultimately coming into the information landscape with their data from the information supply bubble on the top left, which would encompass things such as data integration, data warehousing, content management, and house the single version or single source of the truth type applications. And on the right, the bubble being the information delivery bubble, which is our delivery channels and data marts, analytics, and portals that is giving the sufficient and appropriate data to the users, the customers, and those who are going to be utilizing the data. And all of this is supported at the bottom by the kind of squared off bubble labeled information management, which really houses the disciplines within data management. Master data management being the top one, and then also supported with information governance, metadata management, and the data quality framework. All of this supported by people, process, and technology. But I really wanted to emphasize that master data management is just one player in this, and it is not necessarily a silver bullet for data quality issues. So as we're going forward and talking about master data management, keep that in mind, and also we'll really want to emphasize that master data management it's a discipline. So let's drill down into master data management in a little bit more detail. One way to look at master data management, it's been called the Rosetta Stone in the way that it is somewhat of a, or can be seen as a translation between IT and business partners and organizations within an enterprise about certain aspects of data, usually focused around people, such as customers or things, usually referred to as product or supply. But it's really about, MDM is really about giving the business the ability to control and begin to define and mandate and maintain this data. The real key there being that after defining the data, which is quite a bit of work in of itself, is the mandate piece, really mandating through the enterprise how that data is going to be defined and then maintaining it through the organization. This mandating is what we see as the real key, because without it, this whole thing really just becomes somewhat of an academic exercise. There's really, there's no teeth without that. And the mandate can be systemic through applications of technology or through governance. And also, one of the category for MDM, generally you have two groups, operational MDM and analytical MDM. Operational being focused on data and creating and mandating that data for downstream systems, where analytical MDM is more for the reporting and dashboarding side of the house. So that is just a very high-level view of MDM. It's a very, very broad subject. We have about 30 minutes here that we're gonna drill into it in different aspects, but I wanted to lay out the landscape for MDM. The key is it's a master data management is simple, but you need the process. Otherwise, it becomes very complex. So let's take kind of a high-level illustration of the customer challenge in an organization. In this illustration, we may have a customer here represented as Jane Doe, but then as she interacts with our organization across the enterprise, Jane Doe may appear in multiple different forms and through different touch points go into our system under different names. So through the process of MDM, we really want to build a straight, consistent view of that customer. And ultimately, what we're looking to do in doing this is improve customer service. One of the clouds here labels that it's estimated about a third of customer service issues are related to poor master data management. Then you have also the efficiency of marketing. We really need to know our customers to market and how they interact with us. And also regulatory, which we see a lot of in financial services and healthcare, for instance, where it can become very expensive for us to not properly understand our customers and make mistakes with our customer data. So that is, an example of a single view or a simplified view of a single view of a customer. And you have the same thing when it comes to things or products. So in this example, we have many different labels for that common garden tool that we've all used at one point or another. And ultimately really defining what makes that in our organization. How are we going to define that across the enterprise? In this example, it's boiled down and defined as a spade, which is not what I would have chosen to call it, but that's an example of a decision that may have been made for the enterprise that was seen as the best definition for a global organization. But generally speaking, in defining product challenges, we're really focusing heavily on supply chain and cost cutting. And so going through and doing an MDM process around a product, you're generally going to be looking to save money, to become more efficient in dealing with your product set. And you'll see some of the statistics here. Multiple billions are seen as wasted because of poor master data management in the product region. And then we've got all kinds of added costs related to that. The ultimate goal of MDM is really getting a true 360-degree view of our enterprise, and in this case, of our customer, and then the relation of our customer to our products. So we really want to know all the relationships of our customer to our organization. In this simplified view, it's showing that Jane Doe here is really enjoys garden work and has bought multiple spades from us. But in reality, when we're talking about a 360-degree view of our customer, we want to know all the relationships of that customer to our organization, but then also other relationships that customer may have. We had an example where at a financial services client where they had a lady who had applied to get a credit card, just a small line of credit. She was the spouse of one of their wealthiest clients, and unbeknownst to this organization, they just saw her as a unique individual, did not know her ties back to their own organization. They actually turned her down for the credit card. Meanwhile, she is worth, in relation to her spouse, their household net worth was tens of millions of dollars. So, little mistakes like that in the long run can cost us a lot of money in terms of customer satisfaction, and also just, could be kind of embarrassing to make a mistake like that within an organization. So MDM is going to help us better understand all the relationships of our customers to be able to avoid mistakes like that, and also to be able to identify further opportunity. So ultimately, it's going to give us a business advantage. Now, this slide has a lot of text on it, so I apologize for that, but let me boil it down. Essentially, we want to talk about our point of view around MDM. MDM really was kind of born into the marketplace through customer data integration initially. Before the term master data management or MDM was about, it was commonly called just customer data integration or just working with customer data. It ultimately evolved into becoming the discipline that it is today of MDM. Many technology vendors have began to jump on board, Oracle being the leading vendor in this area, and Capgemini has partnered heavily with all the vendors, but especially with Oracle, in really defining this discipline and how it's supported by technology. And the key thing I want you to take out of this is really for your organization, you need to understand what MDM is going to mean for you. And we highly encourage our customers not to tackle MDM being led by technology. It really needs to be defined based on your organization and based on processes. So you need to focus on your business and what your business benefit is going to be. MDM is a new process that's going to be implemented through people and technology and information. And so you're not going to have an MDM project. You may label it as such, but essentially you're creating a new process when you begin down the road of MDM. So we encourage people to do planning and strategy, a lot of it up front. The old kind of measure twice, cut once philosophy. So from a Capgemini perspective, we highly encourage people to view it as such. There's a statistic at the bottom from Gartner saying that 66% of IT organizations will struggle to demonstrate the value of MDM due to the lack of sufficient business-oriented approaches, appropriate governance, and accompanying metrics and structures. In other words, no planning done up front, and just going about doing MDM for the sake of MDM. You will not be able to show its value. MDM typically falls into one of three categories as we see it. The first on the left is customer MDM, and then in this case, we're saying, I want to better understand my customer, as simple as that. We're really looking to understand our customer to better serve them, to better identify revenue opportunities, and typically when we're focusing on customer MDM, it is typically revenue focused from a business perspective as opposed to efficiency or cost focused. The one in the center, enterprise-centric MDM, is generally about doing MDM for the business case of reducing internal costs and creating better efficiencies internally. So we're looking at driving down administrative costs, running our business more efficiently, really taking our business to be a globalized company or a unified company across many federated sectors. And the third category for MDM is generally supply side or supply chain MDM, which is a way to put it, I spend too much on the wrong thing. We're not efficiently managing our supply chain. And so supply-centric MDM is typically focused on driving efficiencies there and saving costs. But beyond just the product, it's also understanding our suppliers as well. So now, drilling down a little bit further. As I said, MDM is a big category, so we're starting off at high levels, and we're going to get a little bit more focused as we go forward. And I want to talk about MDM in the world of BI and analytics and the benefits it can provide for you. This graphic is a simplified graphic to show the ultimate benefit of MDM in a data warehousing or BI environment. In this first example on the left, you've got two companies that have merged, but unbeknownst to us, because of the lack of MDM, we aren't aware of it. And when asked for a report giving our top 50 customers, and in this example, we've got Fox Books and Bookshop Around the Corner. Anybody remember that movie? I think it was You've Got Mail. Somebody was a fan of that, put that in here. So we've got these two companies. They're separately $400 million and $100 million companies, and may not make it into our top 50 without having the effective MDM management around it to truly understand that customer. So on the right, you see that through MDM, we're able to create one golden record out of these two organizations that shows their total value, which would put them in the appropriate category in this report. So again, a highly simplified version, but the takeaway here is that with MDM, we are going to maintain a constant and timely view of our customers and be able to provide the quality data we need to do the correct BI or analytics on that data. So MDM is another tool. It's not the only tool, but it's another tool for giving ourselves a better environment in BI. Some of the other areas to look at, generally managing reference data in a data warehouse. Those of you who worked a lot in BI know that that is typically a pretty big focus of resources and energy. By having MDM in place, much of the reference data is often mastered data. And in that environment, you're going to be able to offload a lot of the work that is typically done to the MDM environment. And that'll give you benefits such as reducing your initial effort when you're developing, but also reducing your maintenance effort going forward to that reference data, which is often quite a drain on a group's time and resources. So we're able to then free up that time and resource that would be used to focus on what we should focus on in that environment, which typically volume management, data delivery issues and improvements. And additionally, having MDM is another step to creating reliable and trusted data. We are able to, in environments where we're doing a lot of aggregate type of work with transactional data, by having good solid MDM around things like product and around things like customer, we are going to more efficiently, effectively, and confidently be able to aggregate on all of those areas. From a data lineage perspective, one of the benefits you'll see with MDM in the environment is adding the question of why to your data lineage. Explain that. So typically in a data warehousing environment, you can answer the what when you're looking at a field of data and you see a customer name. It says his name is Freddie Jones. You can follow the data lineage and see where that came from, what he is in a data warehousing environment. But when you add MDM, you can answer why is that Freddie Jones? Why are we utilizing that person in this area? It adds a further dimension to our data lineage. And then when it comes to dimension management, a lot of the dimensions that are going to be typically used will be also mastered and done in an MDM environment, and you're able to, from a performance standpoint and a maintenance standpoint, similar to the reference data area, where if it's put in the MDM environment, you won't have the ultra-large dimension tables when you're running reports, so you'll get performance gains there, and then you'll also get help from a resourcing and time and energy standpoint by similar to the reference environment, not having to focus a lot on the aspect of the slowly changing dimensions and managing your conformed dimensions. That is handled in the MDM environment. In order to successfully implement MDM, there are what we call 5 pillars that need to be all done correctly and put effectively in place to have, in the end, a successful master data management environment that you're able to leverage going forward. The first one I'll focus on is the business case, the business drivers. But before I go into that, I want to make a point here that's something that's really important from our perspective and our experience, is that when you look at these 5 pillars, the one on the top right, the technical architecture, is the one we want to make the smallest and the most simplified. And to do that, we've got to be very effective on all the other pillars. If we neglect to do the other pillars oftentimes what we'll see is a very complex, very difficult to manage technical architecture that is being built in place in order to solve a lot of the issues that we've created by not doing those effectively. So again, reemphasizing that we want to go through some rigorous planning and business work up front in order to minimize the technical architecture when the time comes for that. The first piece we'll talk about is the business case. Many IT organizations see a business case as a check box or a speed bump on the road to getting a project done. And in this case, because of the nature of MDM, because MDM is about data that the business is going to own and control, we really got to develop an effective business case and include the business in that process. We need to make the business case process a value-add step in this MDM journey and not a speed bump or a obstacle to going down this road. And if we don't have the business case, you can't prove success. That statistic I read earlier is repeated here about organizations not being able to demonstrate the value of MDM later down the road, according to Gartner, and that's essentially by a failure of doing proper diligence to the business case, because this is what's going to define the success for you. So how do we do a business case? Well, the real key is to get away from talking about MDM as a technology and to get into talking about the business benefits, the business issues that MDM is going to solve. We have some clients where the term MDM is and data governance, both those terms are effectively barred from their vocabulary because of the views and the attitude that it tends to create. So instead, we focus real heavily on the stories, the business case, the use cases in the business that MDM will solve. So we need to find those stories and make them live. And some examples are here in these bullets, but I'll give you one example I found kind of humorous, which was a telecom organization that we worked with where the marketing department wanted to understand the customer better. One of the reasons was for doing certain campaigns to the customer base based on their occupation. And many occupations lend themselves to frequent travel, both international and domestic. So they wanted to get a better understanding of their customer base and where they fell into occupation and whether or not doing that type of a campaign would be effective. And when they dug into their customer data and evaluated their occupation, they found that 90% of their customers, out of multi-million customers, 90% of them all had the same occupation, and that was of an astronaut. So there was an obvious issue there, and it was kind of humorous that was even an option, but effectively the way that happened is when a customer service rep is signing up a new customer, there is a drop-down list box for occupation, and the first one on the list was astronaut. And the customer service rep often didn't even ask the customer because they were incented on signing somebody up quickly. They saw it as a way to just tab across that field and not even mess with it and enter the new customer in, and that default entry ended up going in for almost all their customers. So in that example, you can see there's a master data issue with the customer. There's also, process issues up front. If you're looking at that first slide when I showed the information landscape, that's going to be, information supply issue as well. And a lot of times in master data management, as you start digging into it, instead of just trying to fix that purely on technology, we find that we really need to kind of back up and look at some either change management issues or process issues or system issues on that left side of the information landscape, on the information supply side, and then do master data management afterwards. But again, here with the business case, the key is to find the stories, determine what the benefit is, and see how that weighs against the cost. The second pillar is really kind of drilling in once you've gone through the business case, but drilling in and determine the business requirements that are going to need to be addressed. And this section could be several webinars worth of data on its own, so kind of boil it down to a high level that when we're talking about business requirements, we want to make sure we keep the end goal in focus. make sure we're doing whatever we can to minimize the technology, and generally go through a process of reusing proven approaches. And Capgemini, we have a business process model that we utilize over and over again that saves a lot of time up front for helping to drill through the requirements. But ultimately, what we're going to do here is strategy sessions and workshops to drill into the requirements and define, where we want to be, what does good look like. So we're going to run through a process of a couple of months. This process, depending on the organization and the scope, it could be 6 to 8 weeks. It could be 3 to 4 months process of doing a current state assessment, then defining future state, what does good look like, and then building a roadmap or a blueprint to getting there via master data management, data governance, and other things. And so these all of these boxes are processes and steps we're going to go through to begin to determine each of these pieces, the current state, the future state, and then drawing out the roadmap. So we'll go through and do a maturity assessment in an organization, make sure that the underlying things that are needed for effective master data management are in place. What kind of data governance is in place? Because we cannot do master data management without data governance. What are we doing from a data quality standpoint? Where are we now with data quality? Where we want to be? So we've got to take in all of the pieces around master data management, put them together to help define what our roadmap is going to look like. There's a group within Capgemini called Intelligent Enterprise that this is what they do day in and day out. This is their complete focus. And then after determining the roadmap, we begin to go into the first phase of implementation on that roadmap. The third pillar, the operating model, essentially once we want to determine how it's going to work. Business is going to be the owner of the master data. Business is going to be who's going to determine whether or not the master data is how it needs to be, whether it's meeting the needs of the business, whether it's ultimately going to provide the benefit that it was supposed to in the first place. They're going to give feedback to the Master Data Governance Council. That governance group is usually made up of business and IT members, and they're going to be the ones to tweak and change the governance policies and practices around master data and as this process goes on. So we want to make sure we really kind of define how this is set up, define the metrics that we're going to use to track it. The only way to track it is by knowing how we're meeting with SLAs, determining what KPIs are going to be affected by improved master data management. The KPIs are a very key piece of this, really understanding if I improve, let's say I improve customer data, for instance, one of our KPIs may be customer satisfaction surveys. And we want to track to see if there's a direct correlation to what we're doing and if it's working effectively. But using this feedback is going to help kind of create this model of managing and changing master data as we go forward. And it's all going to be supported by an operational group who's going to be the group that runs in the master data environment and implements changes and just the daily operations of master data. The fourth pillar, technology architecture, as I mentioned before, we do all these other things correctly. We've put the processes in place that should minimize the amount of technology we need in order to do effective MDM. So from a Capgemini perspective, we've got an MDM reference architecture that we utilize. It is technology agnostic, so you can utilize Oracle or any technology in this environment or any mix of technologies, so Oracle for MDM and then potentially other technologies in other areas. But we utilize this to make sure that we're creating the right environment for effective MDM. And this architecture you can see, the center is really the MDM hub, surrounded by the support it's going to need from a data quality and enrichment and just overall data administration. And number two, The data integration pieces are labeled number 3, so we're going to have all forms of integration for the data coming in and out of the MDM hub, being managed by an administrative front end, and then supported by metadata management and the master data lifecycle management, so the definitions around that data lifecycle, appropriate data governance and stewardship, and then change management in the business as well, because we're going to be affecting the way business is running on either side. The last pillar being implementation. So when it comes down to it, Capgemini, we've done implementation many times and have developed multiple frameworks for all the different pieces that need to be put in place, from data taxonomies to data quality frameworks and data governance frameworks that come in place to help us hit the ground running so that we're able to reuse the best practices that we know that work. We're not having to reinvent the wheel, and we're also able to leverage these to avoid the common pitfalls that happen when you're going down this journey for the first time without the experience of having done so in the past. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nicholas to talk about Oracle's specific product offerings and master data. So we'll get a little bit more technical focus now, as I was a little more business focused. So Nicholas, if you want to take over, the floor is yours.
Sounds good. Scott, thank you so much. So again, my name's Nick Mosquartolo with Oracle. For a number of years now, working with the MDM partners around the overall suite of EPM and MDM products. And so I want to take a step back and discussing the concept of master data itself. It sounds more complex than it is, right? From a business level down to a technical level, I mean, the nuts and bolts of it is very simple. What we're trying to do is you have, for example, customer, product, whatever it might be, in multiple systems. And it's all well and good if you make decisions from unique systems, individual systems, but when you really try to take a look at your business across all of your data, that's where master data management comes into play. Now, often I talk to technological folks out there, and they say, oh, you know what? We have a bunch of IT folks that are going to dedupe things, clean things behind the scenes, and we'll take care of that. Now, a number of the IT folks that I talk to, not the most exciting job in the world, right? Especially for longevity nowadays with the changes in technology throughout the world. And to do things that they're really interested in doing versus the mundane things of cleaning data after the fact is really not pertinent to what they're trying to do. If you think about master data management, that's all we're doing at a very simple level. Is let's talk customers for a moment. Is simply take a list of customers that exist. I guarantee you, as it gets larger, 3, 4, 5, 10 different places within your organization. Where does that source of customers exist to be the golden record? It's critical that you understand where the proper name exists. Why? Well, if you look on the left-hand side of the slide, cross-sell and upsell, right? Like anything else in any good company, you always want to try to cross and upsell to existing clients. They're happy with what you do, your services that you provide. So to be able to further that, it's very important that you get a better understanding of who your customer is across all your business segments. From a product perspective, under better operations, right? First-time accurate deliveries, critical. Right? Inventories are something that you need to be aware of. That's a cost factor behind the scenes. IT agility, we've talked about that already. Lower operations from the mundane work that needs to be done and automate those things up front. And then finally, which is probably the most important, risk management and compliance. And just think about that from what you're doing. I've heard a number of situations where, for example, a client was called up, and this is a bank situation, where a client was called up saying they were late on their credit card payment of $28. They got a phone call, but yet in their wealth management organization, they had over $1 million in the bank. If that bank, for example, knew the scope of that customer, they would probably do things differently. So next slide, please. So let's drill down a little bit more into the specific products that Oracle comes to market with. So if you look on the left and right sides, the operational systems and analytic systems, simply, again, from an MDM perspective, what are we doing? We're taking data, we're copying data from the operational systems that you have in-house. Now, if you have 1 or 2 systems, maybe not that big of an issue for you, but like any mid-sized to large company, you have 5+, 10+ systems where we have customer data, product data, supplier data, site data, and relationship data in general. So what we're doing is we're simply taking copies of that existing data, putting that into a hub, cleaning that, and we're going to talk about what we're doing there, and then proliferating that information back out to those similar systems. Now, often we've had clients saying, you know what, well, we can just simply create a data warehouse, and that'll clean most of that up. It will clean it at the surface, but if we're really doing some business analytics from that perspective, you need a good metadata solution and a good master data solution. So as you see depicted here, customer hub, product hub, supplier hub, right? Pretty common sense information, right? You want to align customers together, product together. Suppliers are critical to the overall ecosystems. Site hub, when you want to really understand multiple locations of organizations where they may be cannibalizing other organizations from a sales perspective. And then to bring information together and then be able to proliferate that information out using relationship management. So for example, when we're doing chart of accounts redesign, or we're doing mergers and acquisitions, that's when a relationship tool is critical, and that's why we have it both on the financial side and the analytical side. What you see on top is data governance. And I know Scott talked to that at detail. That is probably the most critical, and that's really where we have software touching the human elements and the political infrastructure of your organization. So next slide. So with the concept of hubs, and again, a hub is simply to build that golden record, manage that golden record, right, with data governance, and then proliferating that information out. The underpinnings of that is data quality. Like anything else, and I hope you're doing this from a pure BI perspective, you need proper data quality in play. And that's not, again, after the fact where you're deduping things, but it's cleansing. It's analyzing and profiling the information, cleansing things appropriately, right? Deduping that as part of the process, and then enrich that with appropriate information back into your systems for reporting and dashboarding and so on and so forth. Next slide. So, like anything else, our success are built on 2 key components, our customers and our partners. Like anything else, if we don't have good, happy customers, right, we're not going to be out there selling our products. Right? U.S. clients are not going to buy our products. We have very, very happy customers that you see by this kind of NASCAR slide that we have here. But it's also key to have partners that understand what MDM is all about. Right? Again, it's much more than just the technology. It's working with your organizations to come to an agreement from a governance perspective that this is the solution going forward. We need to all work together because it's outside, often the decision is outside of the scope of one individual. Decisions from an analytical perspective are done across the organization. Next slide. So let's talk about kind of the 4 key components within the Oracle solution. Again, if you look at the slide, the left-hand side is where we're taking data in. The right-hand side is where we're pushing data out. So we're bringing things in to consolidate the client list, the supplier list, the product list, whatever that might be. The 2 main components or services, if you will, that we're doing, that we're utilizing, is we're cleansing the data from a quality perspective, and then we're governing that data. So it could be as simple as just before you're entering information into a system of choice, a little box pops up to say, are you sure you want to enter this new client? There are 7 existing clients that kind of match that profile. By the way, you don't have authority to enter that client into the system. You must pass that information on to a committee that votes on that. That's a whole component there of governance that a good partner then will work with you through to understand that across your organization. So once you properly govern and cleanse that in the software solutions and services that help that, it becomes trusted master data that you then can share back in your satellite systems. Next slide. So as we understand, now hopefully we understand the concept of MDM from a services perspective. If I break it down into two groupings, the individual product, right, easy to speak about. Again, we've talked to this at length already from a customer's perspective, supplier, product, site, and then from a financial perspective. And you can see the moving parts that are under there. If I'm going to break out each one, customer, roles and responsibilities, client preferences, it's simply not a list of clients. There is enriched data attached to this to make it the golden record so that you can do further analysis on this list of clients. To get reports and dashboards out of that to truly get an understanding of what your clients are doing from a profitability perspective. Under supplier, right, onboarding new suppliers, enriching information with Dun & Bradstreet, for example. Not only supplier name, address, and other data quality initiatives that are going to fulfill the list of supplier information. Products, we did talk about this before, not only the product SKU, the description, but other critical information to make sure that you can leverage what inventory you might have. Site geocoding is critical. You know, there's on our Site Hub product. I'd love if we had a screenshot of the Site Hub product. It actually shows you a visual of where stores might be eating away at sales, cannibalizing from other stores. You can make then a business decision of where you can move things. And then finally, financial. And I think that the biggest case here is mergers and acquisitions and chart of accounts redesign, right? Where you're moving hierarchies and dimensions, where you're making changes on a day-to-day basis, but when you're upgrading systems, right, you need to have something like this to bridge the gap between the two systems. Next slide. Now, as we've talked about hubs, let's then turn the dial a bit and then talk about industries. These same products can be positioned, and we've enriched these products with industry solutions as well, specifically for retail, public sector and higher ed, financial services, and many of the other industries that you see listed there. What we always try to do is try to add into the services behind the scenes something very specific for that industry. So under retail, for example, Supplier Hub is going to be a big play there. So we've added a retail mix into that so that when a typical retail client leverages this tool, they're going to get much more than just clean data. They're going to get clean data specific for their retail industry. Next slide. So what I want to add here, just before I pass it back to Scott, is some typical use cases that we see. So on the left-hand side are things that our customers are saying that they're leveraging MDM for. So consolidating ERP systems, right? We see a lot of that, especially when people going up to R12 of EBS, for example. Migrations and upgrades overall. Right? So maybe just not consolidating, but upgrading to new systems. Procurement leverage, right? Being able to use procurement systems and supply chain, exception elimination, right? I think exception elimination is key there to really get down to the focus of inventory. Let's understand where that is. Consolidating financials, so we're going to talk about chart accounts redesign. CRM, whether it be consolidating, whether it be leveraging on-demand versus on-premises, or data quality. That all falls in that play. Business intelligence and data warehouse. We see traditionally more data quality used here. What we're surprised is we're not seeing as much master data management here. And we see that typically because a data warehouse solution is defined before a master data management solution is defined. So BICG and Capgemini are absolutely tops in this space and absolutely want to leverage their knowledge here. And finally, e-commerce to really kind of bridge the gap across all the systems. Next slide. So let me leave you with some takeaways from an Oracle perspective. Oracle's MDM product sets, whether it be verticalized or product from a product perspective, are enterprise-grade, verticalized MDM applications. So it's something that Scott said earlier, which were much more than a technology. They're applications that are enriched with the services as well as the code behind the scenes. Pre-integrated and MDM-aware data quality. If you're not ready to take that leap into a hub environment, which is critical to any data analysis that you're going to do downstream, at a minimum, at a minimum, you need to look at proper data quality. And it's far more than what traditional clients are doing now, which is simply deduping behind the scenes. For us to be successful, we need successful customers that realize ROI. We have, you saw that slide earlier, we have tens if not hundreds of clients that are very successful, willing to tell their story, and realize the return on investment that they set out. And then finally, top strategic implementation partners. And I'm going to underline the word strategic. The reason why I'm doing this with Capgemini today is because they're a key implementation who understands the strategy of the delivery of MDM. So with that, Scott, let me pass it back to you for a case study.
Thanks, Nick. We're getting close to the top of the hour, so I'm going to go through a case study and then get to the questions pretty quickly here. I want to talk about one example where we implemented customer MDM for a client with Oracle. It is Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. Some of you may have had the pleasure of enjoying one of their ships. They are an organization who initially had many different touch points with their customers where they were housing customer data across all these different touch points. So you had customer data on the onboard ship computers, you had it in the customer service systems after they get off sail. There was the initial booking, the loyalty group. So you had disparate customer data all over their different operations and supporting systems throughout the environment. So Capgemini with Oracle implemented UCM, or customer MDM, from Oracle at Royal Caribbean, along with some other CRM applications from the Siebel travel vertical. And it put in place a customer hub. So really, now Royal Caribbean is able to see a lot of new efficiencies from this. First of all, they better understand the overall value of a guest because they're able to see across their enterprise how that guest interacts with their organizations, from a loyalty perspective, which is the equivalent of like frequent flyer miles in the airline industry, down to whether or not they are providing consistent service to each of their guests. They're able to see efficiencies around generating quotes for different guests based on their profiles. They've got more consistent and improved communication with their guests. And also within internal departments within Royal Caribbean, being able to effectively talk about and communicate about guest information across the enterprise as opposed to having a siloed view of each of their guests. So Capgemini and Oracle put this in place. It's been in place there for a few years now, and it's a very successful implementation. But it's one real-world example of what putting in place a customer MDM or any type of MDM application can do for an organization. So with that, we will go into the final piece here. And Tina, are we going to do questions first, or do you want to do the announcements first?
No, Scott, let's just do a couple quick announcements, and then we can go to Q&A.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tina.
Okay, so a couple announcements. For those of you that are planning to attend Oracle Open World, BICG Capgemini is continuing their annual tradition of having our customer appreciation party at Open World. And this is the opportunity that we get to honor some of our most innovative customers. So if you're planning on going to Open World, we'd love for you to come and attend our event. Space is limited, so you must register in advance to secure your spot. And you can just go visit the BICG website at biconsultinggroup.com to go ahead and register. I also just wanted to tell you quickly that we have a few new additions to the BICG webinar series. So in September, we'll be featuring OBI EE 11G upgrade considerations. And then in October, we will feature top reasons to deploy BI applications with your next ERP upgrade. And finally, in December, we will tell you how to define your mobile BI strategy. And again, you can go ahead to our website at biconsultinggroup.com to register for these events. Next slide, Scott. Okay, And thank you to everyone for attending the webinar today. As a token of our appreciation, 2 free BICG University training tokens will go to Alden Porter of Ford Motor Company and Kiran Mandarapu of Canon Europe. Congratulations to you both. And I think with that, we are going to move on to questions. And Scott, do we have any questions for you to address?
We have one question, which is asking how MDM is different from metadata management. So there is some overlap in that both of these provide underlying data management services and help us understand our data a little bit better, and also support BI and other elements within the information landscape. But the real key difference to note here is metadata covers all of our data. It gives us information about all of our data throughout our environment, where MDM is concerned about specific master data, non-transactional data. Also, another key difference, MDM is about the mandating of data standards and the synchronization of data, creating basically a single unified version of data, whereas metadata is focusing on the information about data throughout an entire information landscape. So, metadata is not mandated about the common standards and business rules, whereas MDM is mandating those common standard business rules on certain specific elements of data within an organization. So just think of it as metadata is going to cover the entire information landscape world, where MDM, master data management, you're really going to be focusing on specific data elements. For example, a customer data, you may have 50 different elements to describe a customer within an organization. But when it comes to determine what do we want to master, what do we want to mandate to be the same across the enterprise, to be a single view across the enterprise, we may only pick 3 or 4 of those elements maybe worth mastering. Maybe a demographic, or maybe address, or things of that nature. Whereas metadata is going to cover that entire spectrum. So hopefully that answered the question. That's the only question I have so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
If any folks have additional questions, they can certainly reach out to you or Nick after the webinar. So thanks to both of you, Scott and Nick, for presenting on today's webinar, and thanks to all of you for joining. We will be sending an email follow-up shortly with a link to the PowerPoint PDF of the presentation, as well as the recording. And of course, if you have any remaining questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Scott or Nick. Thank you again, and we look forward to working with you. Have a great day.